Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into this presentation. I'm just going to give a quick background and overview of what Two Ravens is and what we're looking for in a partner. So what that's going to consist of is first a quick introduction, kind of give the background to the problem that we're looking to solve and how we've approached solving it. Then number two, I'll give you a demo of the working software that we've got at the moment. And then number three, we'll kind of take a step back and talk about what the software could possibly do in the future and what we're looking for in a partner to help us develop this. So number one, what is the problem? Why does Two Ravens exist? So the problem is that digital documents such as PDF, fax, and Word are very common. So for example, they make up all of our invoices, our regulation compliance, our contracts, and our reporting. And PDF, fax, and Word are just the beginning. I mean, even if you just think outside the box a little bit, email bodies could be something as well that could have information about reporting in there or things that are important to contracts. And they have the same problems, and these problems are that despite the vast importance of these to our companies, the infrastructure around these documents is lacking. So for example, number one, they're stored informally. A lot of these documents that we see in companies is they live in someone's email inbox, or maybe they live on a location on the server somewhere, and people don't really know what the procedure is around them. Where the documents are they categorized by date? Should they categorize them by date when they have to add a new one? What should they do? So people don't really understand how these documents should be stored, and the problem with that is that they become not categorized or searchable, especially when you think of documents like fax documents, which are just images of text, so you couldn't even search that document with a Control F or anything like that. And the problem that we get with not categorizing or making our documents searchable is that this leads to a high cost to do anything. So, for example, maybe you work on a health and safety form that, for example, you're part of a school and 200 people have to fill in this health and safety form. In order to make sure that those forms are filled in correctly and get the relevant data out of them, maybe you want to enter that any information about allergens or stuff like that into your system that the cafeteria can use. A human user has to actually go through those 200 documents and do that all manually. And the problem with that is that one, that's a really high cost. There's a lot better uses of humans' time than going through these documents and just copy pasting text like that. If they even can, sometimes these documents don't even have text within them. They're just images of text. And number two, that takes a long amount of time. How long would it take you to copy paste the contents of 200 documents? And then when you think about what can go wrong outside of that as well. So for example, if someone hasn't filled in a field on this health and safety form that they do need to fill in, then someone has to go back, start an email chain, keep track of who hasn't given the correct all the steps, chase them up maybe if they're not responding to your request for more information and stuff like that. So there's a real high cost to do anything around these digital documents that are so fundamental to the companies. So let's have a look at what we can do as a solution for this. And I guess the obvious place to start is, are there any current solutions on the market, and what do they look like? So the answer is yes. In banking, we're seeing a lot of this big move towards data automation, and this leads to kind of phrases like the digital backbone that if you want to know more, you can Google about. But banking really is leading the way to this data automation. But there's some problems here, which is why this data automation tools in banking aren't spilling out into other companies such as schools and hospitals. And number one, that is because this software has very expensive licensing. So we're talking tens of thousands of pounds to millions of pounds on a yearly license. And number two, they're always on premise. So bank will hire their own IT teams to monitor their own servers that they're buying, and then they set up their own databases and they hire their own database admins. That's a lot of money to set up the infrastructure that you need for these web tools, on top of the very expensive licensing. And number three, they're very complex, so they're quite hard to use, and banks will spend thousands of pounds extra on top of the thousands they've already spent on system managers and technical consultants to set up the processes in the software that they want set up. So what is our solution? How are we going to make this better and put data automation tools into the hands of more people? And to solve this, we need industry-leading AI to find the information in documents. So a lot of these tools, they're very difficult to set up, especially for complicated PDFs. We need to remove that difficult setup. So you don't need technical managers in, and you don't need systems admins, and you don't need technical consultants, and you don't need professional services that cost thousands of pounds a day. We need to put as much, weight behind our AI so that users don't have to set this up. It just works straight out of the box. So, hand in hand with this, we need a UX focused setup. So it should be really easy to set up new processes or to look at how you've configured the system and to know what information it's extracting, where it's storing it, how you can query the information in there, what systems it's interacting with, what's happening when a document comes into the system. And of course, number 3, we need low licensing and system management costs. These solutions that work for banks because they cost hundreds of thousands and millions of pounds isn't transferable to other industries, like, as I've said, schools and hospitals, and other industries that can't spend millions upon millions of automating this data. And number 4, we need cloud scalability. So what that allows us to do is keep the system up and running no matter whether there's one document coming in or there's thousands coming in. Okay, so now we're going to go into a demo of the software. So the thing to keep in mind with this demo is that while what I'm showing will be functionally complete, what we're really looking for to take this idea forward is to find someone we can work with where we can flesh out the feature set. So I'm going to come back to the slide deck and kind of show more things that the software could do in the future. So what types of documents could it work on? What automation processes could we have? How could it get data in? What kind of user permissions do we need? How are people going to get documents into the system? So these questions haven't been solved in this demoware. This demoware is just to show you the technology that we have at the moment and show you how far along we are in the development process. Okay, so this is the development version of the software so far. So the site is split up into 2 main components. So we've got what we're trying to do is center this around what we call a workflow. So that is, when I see a document come into the system, what steps is the site going to take on that document? So there's 2 things we need here. One, we need to be able to configure these individual workflows, and you see we've got a few examples which we'll go through. But what we also need to do is see how that's interacting with the system. So we've got here a dashboard of the workflows which have happened and what the status is, so that you can see at a glance. And we'll get into that into a minute. And what we've also got is the configuration. So if I just go through these one by one. So if I click on this deliver email workflow, let's have a look at what this does. So for any workflow, you give it a name, and then you can give it a description to better flesh out what it does and communicate that to whoever else needs to work on these. So we've got this workflow is configured in 3 separate parts. So number 1, read, and at the moment we've only got one way to read in the data from these documents. We've got our table data AI. So working closely with Google, who according to the independent foresters have the best AI offering on the market at the moment. So we're working with their beta document platform, and what we've got is their industry-leading AI that allows you to extract tables of information from documents, no matter how the table looks like. So it could come in with a different column order. The table could be in different positions on different documents. But the AI allows the system to look at that document, figure out where that table is, extract the data from it, and it can use a thing called OCR. So even if you can't copy paste any text out of that document because there's no actual text in that document, it's just an image of text, it can use AI to look at that image of text and figure out what it says and put that in a table format and extract that and run that through the system. And then number 2, we get onto operations. There's none here at the moment because we'll come to that in a bit. And then number 3, once you've read in the information, you've done your operations on it, what you're going to do finally is output that. So here we've just got an email output. So we're sending it to this email address. We give the email a subject. we tell what the file name that we're going to attach, and that file is going to be a spreadsheet of the table that we found in this PDF document. And then we can also give it a message body here. So if we go back here and have a look at a different type of delivery, so we've got this write to collection workflow. So again, it's using that table data AI. No operations on this one as well. And for the output, we're going to store it in something called a data collection. So what that means is that each individual row in this PDF will be stored, in our cloud database. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to query. So you could say, find me a row in any of the PDFs that come in where field 1 is equal to 10. Or you could sum up all the fields from all the PDFs that you've seen. So you could say, okay, if these are invoices, for example, take me the total of all these tables that have come in and tell me how much is going out. So those are the outputs, and this demo kind of brings together that extraction, some operation, just one operation at the moment, and the output. So here what we said is we're going to validate the volume. So the PDF will have a volume column, and what we're saying is if the volume is above 400 million, then we're going to require approval from an admin user. So what that looks like is in this stage number 2 operations, we've added an operation which we can do with this add button. We can also delete operations like this. And what we're going to say is just look in that data table you find in the PDF that's come in, look for a column called volume. And what we could even do is, to take the AI idea further, is look for things like volume. So AI can understand that volume is the same thing as quantity. So even if a PDF comes in that says quantity instead of volume, the AI could read that as well. And what this is going to do is, if volume is less than or equal to, and this is 400 million, then that is going to require admin approval. Otherwise, it's just going to flow straight through the workflow. So if it's less than 400 million, it's just going to go straight out into this email. So this is just going to generate a report based on what was in there, but in a spreadsheet format, which is a lot easier for users to work on and query and make graphs from and copy from. Okay, so what does that look like running through the system? So this is the example PDF that we're going to be running through the system. And if you remember the rules that we have configured, what we're going to do is we're going to say if this volume column is equal to more than 400 million, then that is going to require admin approval. And if it is less than 400 million, then it's going to automatically extract all this data from the PDF, put that in a spreadsheet, and then email it to the destination that we've supplied. So if a user would come in here and want to do this, they'd have to manually add up all these columns and then take that, put it in a spreadsheet, send that out to a user. But let's have a look at how the system does it. Okay, so let's send that PDF into the system. So you see there that we got this new entry into the system, and that was running for a bit, and now what that's done is that's realized that if we have a look at all the steps it went through, it extracted all the information from the file correctly, and then it got to that validation step, and it's correctly looked at that PDF. The total of the volume column in that PDF is about 450 million. So it said that's too high and requires admin approval. So on this dashboard here, it's flagged that up as requiring admin approval. So if I were to come in here and then change this from 400 million to 500 million and change the operation and then save that and then workflow results, and let's send that same PDF in again. So a new entry here has popped up, it's running through it, and we can see that was successful. So if I click in here, we can see that this extracted the file successfully, it validated all that data, and now it's delivered that by email. So let's have a look at what it's delivered. Okay, and just to show you what that looks like, here is the email that's been sent out. It's been sent out from 2 Ravens. It says, hi, please find the attached stocks information in the spreadsheet, which was what was supplied by the user. And this is the spreadsheet that has been sent out. And we can see here that this is the data from those 2 tables that were in the PDF all merged into one. So a user could very easily look through this, make graphs on it, filter rows, sort by rows, anything like that. Okay, so that's the status of the product at the moment. So I'd just like to talk a bit about where the product could go and what we're looking for in partnerships. So as we've seen, this is the PDF that was run in the demo, and this is just taken out of one of the use cases which the AI platform can support. So here, grids can come in with different orders. The grid could be in any position on the page, and the software can read it in and run it through any sort of process. That could be validating totals, and that's what we saw in the demo. It could potentially flag problematic rows, so it could say, on an invoice, this line item is particularly high, or even this line item is higher than we've seen historically. So so for example, if you always pay £100 a month for cleaning, and then suddenly a bill comes in that has £300 a month for cleaning, it could flag that as not in line with historical averages. And what it also gives you is the ability to combine all of this information into one central table. So if you wanted to find a line item and you knew it was within the last 10 invoices, instead of having to go through those 10 invoices, you could easily search that data as it's in one central location, and you could easily get the total amount spent per month or the total amount spent per week, and you can make graphs and information and create presentations based on that information that's all in one central location now. In addition to grids, what the AI platform also supports is this kind of key value forms pairing. So you see here we have, for example, name, and then it gives the name of the person. So what we could do is create workflows that would validate, for example, I don't know, the address had to be of a specific, from a specific subset, or the invoice number had to be a certain kind of pattern. So letter, and then a bunch of numbers. Or we could also store and categorize these, so we could store them in dates, or we could allow you to quickly look up with an invoice number, quickly look up in the system that particular invoice. And what we could also work on is a combination of those two, so that is what the AI platform supports as well. So for example, we've got fields here which are date of issue and due date, which is one per PDF, but we've also got a table in here. So we could also create business rules and automation around combining that information and categorizing them together. And even to take it a step further, what the AI platform does support is this natural language processing. So for example, these contracts, what we've seen so far is that it could extract that phone number or that model name, but what it could also extract is that deposit hidden within one of those paragraphs. And then what it could do is, when version 2 of a contract comes in, it could very easily find the differences between those contracts and display that to a user, so the user doesn't have to read through the whole contract again. Okay, so that brings us to our final slide, which is what we're looking for in terms of working with partners to develop this software. Because at the moment what we've got is a very good demo that shows that almost as a proof of concept that this idea works and is possible. And what we are looking for now is someone to work with to take this demo piece of software and develop that to a full web app that can be useful for a wide range of businesses. So what we're offering basically is a one-to-one partnership where we can come in, assess what you would need out of the software, observe how you would use it, and kind of build into the software what the exact features that you want. And what you get out of that is you get this new software with all the features that you want, and we could possibly also work on some discounts or a limited free trial or something like that to also sweeten the deal. And what we get out of that is we get direct feedback from would-be customers of what features this should have. So if this sounds like that's something you would want to implement, please get in contact with us. The email and telephone number are on the screen at the moment. Okay, well, that's everything from me today. So thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.